Hey guys, today we're talking about one of my most mind-blowing experiences, and not in a good way. The topic? What fun thing will you never ever try again? You know, some stuff sounds like a good time until you're in it, and suddenly questioning every decision you've ever made? Yeah, that kind of fun. Get ready for stories that are funny, regretful, awkward, and a few that are just flat-out horrifying. All from people who thought they were signing up for a good time, live to cringe about it. Before we jump in, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments and tell us what fun thing turned out to be a total nightmare for you. We just might feature it next time. Alright, let's get into it. Paintball was all fun and games until it got personal, so I'd never been paintballing before. I mean, yeah, I'd heard the horror stories, bruises, rogue shots to the neck, that one guy who got hit in the family jewels and apparently had to sit on ice packs for 3 days. But still, it sounded like a blast. My buddy Jake was the one who set it up. Team bonding, he said. Let's blow off steam. At the time, I worked for this mid-sized marketing firm where everyone tried way too hard to be the office's version of a TikTok influencer. So I figured a day of low-stakes war might actually be kind of cathartic. When we got to the paintball place, I immediately noticed 2 things. The guys who worked there took this way too seriously. My boss, Greg, showed up in full camouflage and his own helmet. He even brought knee pads. And he wasn't smiling. It should have been my first red flag. Anyway, the ref gave us the safety speech. Don't shoot people closer than 10 feet. Keep your mask on, blah blah blah. Then we split into teams. I was on Team Bravo with Jake and some of the interns. Greg, unfortunately, was on Team Alpha. The match starts, and for the first few minutes, it was actually pretty fun. I even managed to snipe someone from behind a haystack, which made me feel like a paintball god. But then I hear this primal yell, like someone had just been told their house was being repossessed. And I turn around just in time to see my boss, Greg, charging at me like an angry rhino. He unloaded on me, talking 4, maybe 5 shots. Chest, leg, back, shoulder. I had a welt on my hip that looked like the continent of Africa. I yelled, "I'm out." He kept shooting. I staggered off the field like a wounded animal, arms up, paint dripping down my shirt. The ref blew his whistle, and I heard one of the interns gasp. Dude, I think Greg has issues. We found out later he'd been going through a divorce and maybe took the whole team bonding idea as a way to channel his rage. I didn't press charges, but I did start avoiding every single team event after that. I haven't been back to a paintball field since. Every time someone brings it up as a fun idea, I get phantom bruises. So yeah, paintball, never again. Now, if you thought that was intense, just wait till you hear about the next story. Let's just say it involves fun in the sun, heat exhaustion, and a very expensive lesson in humility. Okay, so on paper, this beach trip should have been perfect. It was a friend of Ifren's birthday. Big group think like 12 of us. We rented this giant house near the coast, right on the edge of one of those Instagram-worthy beaches, where everyone looks sun-kissed and hydrated and suspiciously wealthy. I was already a little skeptical because I burn immediately. It's like I look at a UV index above 4 and I start to blister. But everyone kept saying, don't worry, we'll bring shade. We've got umbrellas. You know the lies people tell when they just want you to commit to something? We get there, and I'm not going to lie, it looked amazing. Crystal clear water, soft sand, that salty breeze that makes you think maybe life isn't so bad after all. But the problem started. Immediately. First, the shade they promised turned out to be one broken beach umbrella that wouldn't stay in the ground because the wind was too strong. So it spent most of the day doing its best Mary Poppins impression and nearly impaling strangers. Second, I made the mistake of trusting my friend Amber to apply sunscreen to my back. I got you, she said confidently, except ... She most definitely did not get me. I had perfect handprint-shaped sunburns in the middle of my back and shoulders. The next day I looked like I'd been attacked by a ghost. Third, and this is the part that still haunts me, I got heat exhaustion. Like full-blown, dizzy, nausea, vision, tunneling heat exhaustion. It hit me around my afternoon. I'd been drinking White Claws, which I now understand do not count as hydration. I stood up to go get more chips, took maybe 5 steps, and suddenly the world just started tilting. My ears were ringing. I remember trying to say something like, "Guys," but it came out more like goo. Next thing I know, I'm lying flat on my back in the sand with 2 people fanning me with paper plates. and some guy I'd never met kneeling beside me saying, "Do you have a history of seizures?" I didn't. But thanks for the anxiety spike, Brett. We packed up early. Everyone said they were worried about me, but really I think I just killed the vibe. The birthday girl barely spoke to me the rest of the trip. The worst part? That night I couldn't even lie down because my sunburn was so bad. I had to sleep sitting upright with aloe-soaked paper towels taped to my back like a sad, minty mummy. So yeah, bitch, trips with big groups sounds fun. But unless there's proper shade, an actual hydration plan, and someone I trust with sunscreen, I'm out. Smooth transition. Alright, that one was physically painful. But let's pivot to something a little more awkward. Like the time I agreed to do karaoke in public and accidentally destroyed someone's bachelorette party. Alright, so listen. I like karaoke. I'm not good at it. I know that. I've got the vocal range of a dying blender, but I commit, okay? I go full send. That's what karaoke is supposed to be about. Fun, vibes, delusion. So one night, a few years ago, I was out with a couple of coworkers after a really long week. We'd just wrapped this miserable project where we had to redo a client's entire ad campaign because the CEO's daughter didn't like the font. So yeah, we were exhausted and kind of emotionally unwell. Naturally. The solution was margaritas and karaoke. We walk into this bar, and it's packed. It's like standing room only. So there's a line for the mic. People are screaming every word to Bohemian Rhapsody. And the stage has this weird fog machine that puffs out mist every time someone hits a high note. I was already half a margarita in and fully feeling myself, so I decide I'm going to do Evanescence. Yes, that Evanescence. Just bring me to life. Why? I don't know. Chaos, maybe. The crowd was hyped. I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Well, first red flag, I didn't realize it was a duet. Second red flag, the only person willing to join me on stage was a very drunk guy in a cowboy hat named Tanner who insisted on doing both parts in a fake British accent. So we start the song, and I'm already struggling to keep up with the tempo, because apparently Evanescence doesn't care about people who didn't warm up their lungs. Meanwhile, Tanner is screaming the male part like he's auditioning for a community theater version of Less People Were Staring. One guy actually put his fingers in his ears. Now here's where it gets tragic. There was a bachelorette party at the front of the bar. 10 women in matching sashes and glitter boots. The bride, whose name I later learned was Chrissy, had just finished singing some Shania Twain song and had apparently told the DJ, "Don't let anyone kill the vibe." Spoiler alert, I killed the vibe. Mid-song, someone from their group yelled, "Oh my God, make it stop." And I, in my overly sensitive, slightly tipsy state, shouted back, "It's called art," which only made things worse. The DJ tried to fade us out. Tanner took that as a cue to go even harder. He tried to stage dive. Nobody caught him. He hit the floor like a bag of wet laundry. Security showed up. Chrissy's maid of honor got in my face and called me emotionally disruptive, which honestly accurate. I left mid-applause, holding my coat and pride like they were funeral flowers. Since then, I've implemented a karaoke rule. No ballads, no drama, and no songs that require more than one lung. Okay, so maybe karaoke is a little too high stakes for some of us, but you know what else sounds fun until it's not? Hiking, especially when your experienced outdoorsy friend turns out to be one GPS bar short of getting us all killed. Let me tell you about that. You ever agree to something just because you don't want to seem like that person? That was me. That's how I ended up on a death march through the wilderness with 3 granola people and one guy who thinks Google Maps is a compass. So it started with my friend Maya texting me, "Hey, we're doing this super chill hike this weekend. You'll love it. Just bring water and good shoes. We'll be back by lunch." First mistake? Believing Maya? Second mistake? Not Googling the trail myself? So Saturday rolls around, and I meet up with the crew at some trailhead 2 hours outside the city. There's Maya, her boyfriend, Drew, a girl named Izzy who brought her yoga mat, and Ben, who was allegedly our guide. Ben had one of those straw hats and a handlebar mustache, and he kept talking about becoming one with the land. He had an old-school leather backpack that looked like it was made from a 1930s couch. Cool aesthetic, zero practicality. Anyway, we start this hike. It's pretty. I'm like, okay, maybe this won't suck. We're talking trees, birds, fresh air. I'm feeling smug about agreeing to come. 45 minutes in, Maya says, "I think we take a right here." Ben goes, "Nope, left. I feel it." What do you mean, you feel it? We went left. And that's where things began to unravel. Turns out Ben doesn't use maps because they're limiting. Instead, he relies on land energy. Spoiler alert. The land energy led us directly into a dense forest full of thorn bushes, mud, and something I swear was a coyote den. At one point, Izzy tried to do a deep breathing exercise and got a tick on her eyelid. 3 hours in, we're lost. There's no cell service. I finished my water. Ben's still pretending like we're almost there, even though it's very clear he has no clue where we are. Eventually, Drew climbs a boulder to try and see the ridge. He falls. Not a major injury, but his ankle does that thing where it makes a crunchy sound and everyone gets real quiet. Now we're stranded, dehydrated, and limping. Maya's yelling at Ben. Ben's yelling at the forest. I'm Googling how to survive in the wild. From one bar of service that only works, when I stand on a rock holding my phone above my head like Simba. We finally flagged down some actual hikers who were like, "You're on the wrong side of the mountain. How did you even get here?" They guided us back. We got to the car at 8:17 p.m., no lunch. Just trauma and a Cliff Bar someone found at the bottom of a bag. Maya later texted me, "Still can't believe we survived. So fun though, we should do it again." Yeah, ... No, if it doesn't have trail markers, cell reception, and a snack stand, I'm not going. Alright, so that was a solid mix of fear, sweat, and regret. But coming up next is a story that sounds wholesome, till you realize I was emotionally blackmailed by a child into performing at a school talent show. I'm still not over it. So, how did I end up on stage at a middle school talent show dressed as a pirate, singing Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid? It started with a kid named Jonah. He's my neighbor's son, and he's like aggressively adorable. The kind of kid who says things like, "I made you a friendship rock," and hands you a glitter-covered pebble with the seriousness of someone proposing marriage. One day, I'm taking out the trash, and he runs up to me with his little hands behind his back and says, "I need a huge favor. I should have run." Turns out Jonah had signed up for his school's talent show. He was going to sing a Disney medley. But his duet partner bailed, probably out of sheer survival instinct. So he needed someone to step in last minute. His words, "You're the funniest grown-up I know. You have that voice?" Now I do not have that voice. What I have is a voice made for shower singing and deeply ironic karaoke, but Jonah had that sad puppy look that kids somehow weaponize. And next thing I knew, I was saying, "Sure, buddy. Just tell me what I have to do." His mom texted me the set list later that night. 3 songs. Full costumes. The opening number, Under the Sea. My role, Sebastian the Crab. The following week was a blur of rehearsals, glitter glue, and trying not to die of secondhand embarrassment. The school's music teacher kept saying things like, "Just have fun with it," which is code for, "You're going to look ridiculous, so embrace the pain." Then came show night. There were folding chairs. There were grandmas. There were at least 60 camcorders in the audience, and every single one of them was aimed at me. We go on stage. The spotlight hits. I'm wearing a red hoodie with foam claws that Jonah made out of oven mitts. He's in a white button-down and sparkly blue tie. The music starts and suddenly I'm supposed to dance. I don't remember much after that, just flashes. Me doing a weird side shuffle while singing in a Jamaican accent that I immediately regretted. Kid in the front row, pointing and whispering, why is he doing that voice? Jonah hitting his big high note, arms wide, like he was in Les Mis. The crowd clapped. I blacked out, not literally, but spiritually. Afterward, Jonah's mom said that was so brave, which, in mom language, means, "You made it weird, but thanks for not bailing." Jonah hugged me and said we didn't win, but I think we were the best, and honestly, that helped. Would I do it again? Absolutely not, but I did keep the oven mitts, just in case. Okay, so that one was chaotic cute. But now we're shifting gears into something a lot more nerve-wracking. Imagine signing up for a fun volunteer experience and finding yourself locked in a dark room with screaming strangers and a broken fog machine. Let me tell you about my one and only night working a haunted house. So this one takes place back when I was trying to be a yes person. You know that phase? Where you've read exactly one self-help book and suddenly you're like, yeah, I should say yes to new experiences. Enter volunteering at a haunted house. A friend of a friend runs this big local Halloween attraction. Every year they turn an old community center into a haunted maze, complete with jump scares, strobe lights, and underpaid teenagers in clown makeup. He needed last-minute help and was like, "You'd be perfect in the morgue scene." Perfect for the morgue scene. Sure, what could go wrong? So I say yes. I show up the night before opening. The building is already half dark, filled with fake blood, plastic organs, and fog machines that smell like melting plastic. I meet the crew. Half of them look like theater kids who got lost on their way to a hot topic. The other half are clearly just here for the free pizza and chaos. They take me to my station. A dim room with flickering red lights, a fake autopsy table, and a giant walk-in freezer door that leads to the next scare. My role: lie on the slab in scrubs, covered in blood, and suddenly sit up screaming when people walk in. Sounds simple, right? Well, night one goes off the rails immediately. First, the fog machine short circuits and fills my room with so much haze I can't see my own feet. I'm coughing, trying to stay in character. But at one point, I literally fall off the autopsy table and land behind a pile of fake intestines. Very spooky. Second, there's this group of drunk college guys who come through thinking it's hilarious to mess with the actors. One of them, let's call him Kyle, decides he's gonna test me. When I sit up screaming, instead of running, he grabs my arm and yells, "Ah! It's alive!" and tries to pull me off the table like it's a wrestling match. Security had to intervene. I got a bottle of water and a cookie from the break room, which is apparently their version of workers' comp. But the absolute worst part, the emergency lights went out around 9:30. Total blackout, like horror movie-style pitch darkness. They evacuated the guests, but us actors, we were told to stay in place. So now I'm alone, lying on a metal table in a fog-filled red room, listening to distant clown laughter and someone repeatedly knocking on the inside of a fake coffin. I quit halfway through the second night, no regrets. It was the kind of fun that turns into trauma real fast. Now I stick to handing out candy at the door with a blanket on my lap and an alibi in case anyone tries to recruit me again. Alright, after that horror movie of a job, let's pivot to a different kind of terrifying. Dating apps. Because when I tell you I once agreed to a fun blind date adventure, that turned out to be a 3-hour escape room with a man who refused to use vowels. I wish I was joking. So I matched with this guy on a dating app who seemed quirky, but in that curated, ironic kind of way. You know, his bio said things like, 6'2", if that matters, fluent in sarcasm, collector of expired coupons. Let's make memories. I should have known. We exchanged a few messages. He was funny, a little weird, but I figured, hey, fun is fun. Suggested a date idea that he said would be totally unforgettable. Mistake number 1, agreeing to a mystery activity. Text me the day before. Bring closed-toed shoes and an open mind. I show up to the address and realize he's taken me to an escape room. Now, I enjoy puzzles, but I enjoy them from the comfort of my couch, preferably in pajama pants, and with no time limit. Locked in a fake prison cell with a stranger who introduces himself as Jake Law, like the letter J, and also Claw, like danger. This man was fully in character. He insisted on reading every single clue out loud in a noir detective voice. Like the light flickers. Just like my last relationship. I laughed the first time. I smiled the second. By the 7th clue, I was wondering if I could just fake an asthma attack and be removed from the premises. Now, escape rooms are supposed to be team activities. But Jay Claw decided he was the alpha sleuth and I was ... decorative. Every time I tried to help, he'd say things like, "Good hustle," or "Nice try, kid." Kid, I'm older than him by 2 years, and also I drove us there. Halfway through, we accidentally triggered a hidden compartment, and this giant plastic skeleton fell from the ceiling and hit him in the shoulder. He screamed like he was being mauled by a mountain lion, then tried to turn it into a fake karate move. He yelled back, "Beast," and threw the skeleton across the room, breaking one of its legs. The staff had to come in and reset it. Also, side note, he was microwaving a protein bar in his pocket the whole time. Said he needed to keep his macros right for mental clarity. I don't know what that means. We didn't escape. The room timer ran out with us, still arguing over whether moth could be a 4-letter password. It was lamp. When we got back to the lobby, he turned to me and said, "Well, that was wild. We make a good team. Want to grab a post-game smoothie and dissect our performance?" I said I had a dentist appointment. He said at 8 p.m. I said, "Yeah. ... Emergency teeth." I left. Blocked. Refused to make eye contact with escape rooms for a full year. Moral of the story? Smooth transition. Okay, we've done awkward dates, haunted houses, and karaoke disasters. But now it's time for a story that should have been wholesome, but took a hard left turn. Imagine signing up for a fun cooking class thinking you're about to learn how to make pasta. ... And ending up in a scene straight out of Gordon Ramsay's nightmares. So it all started when my friend Natalie sent me a link that said, "Learn to make authentic handmade pasta in just one evening. No experience needed." Sounds fun, right? Wholesome. A little flour, a little wine, maybe some light flirting with a guy who knows how to pronounce tagliatelle. I was all in, signed up immediately. I even wore my cute apron, the one with little lemons on it, because I had this fantasy of rolling dough while sipping a glass of red wine and laughing with new friends. Like, I was in a Hallmark movie, yeah? No? I show up to this class and immediately realize this isn't a cozy, low-pressure thing. This is culinary boot camp hosted by a man named Paolo, who looked like he's fought a war with dough and wine. He wore a chef's coat, had a permanent scowl, and greeted us with, "You will not like me by the end, but you will respect the noodle." That was how it started. We were divided into teams of 3. My group included a woman named Deborah, who took the class very seriously and brought her own rolling pin, and a college guy named Chase, who was clearly just there for the free wine and kept asking, "Do we get to eat this later or what?" Paolo began the class by shouting, "Pasta is an act of love, not a product." Then he slammed a bag of semolina flour on the counter and told us we had 90 seconds to measure our ingredients with our souls, not a scale. It went downhill from there. I accidentally added too much water, which made our dough sticky, which made Deborah roll her eyes so hard I swear I heard a tendon snap. Chase kept wandering off to refill his wine glass. Paolo stopped by our station, took one look at our dough, and muttered, "Sad." That was it, just sad. 30 minutes in, I had flour in my eyebrows. Deborah was muttering about amateurs. Paolo had started playing Italian opera at full blast, while walking between stations like a disappointed father. Then came the pasta cutting portion. I tried to slice my tagliatelle evenly, but the dough was too soft and everything came out lumpy, like lasagna, roadkill. I asked Paolo if I could start over. Said there are no second chances in pasta. Okay, finally, we gotta cook the noodles. At this point, I was starving, covered in sauce, and low-key shaking. We plated our work. Mine looked like what you'd get if Play-Doh and Regret had a baby. It was edible. Then Paolo stood at the front of the room, arms crossed, and tasted one dish from each group. When he got to us, he took a bite, looked at me and said, "You tried your best. But never again cut pasta that thick, unless you want to choke your grandmother." I was both insulted and proud. We got participation certificates at the end, and Paolo actually clapped once. Just once. So, yeah, did I learn how to make pasta? Technically. Did I cry in the car on the way home while listening to sad Italian instrumentals? Also, yes. I've stuck to boxed spaghetti ever since. It doesn't judge me. It doesn't scream. It just cooks in 9 to 11 minutes like a dependable little friend. All right, after that carb-loaded meltdown, let's wrap up with something a little more personal. Honestly, kind of embarrassing. Have you ever thought, hey, I should try stand-up comedy once, I'll be fun? I did once, let me tell you why. I'll never touch a microphone again. Unless it's for karaoke in a dimly lit room where no one knows my name. This story starts the same way all bad decisions do. At a bar, with friends, and too much confidence. We were out for someone's birthday, just a chill night, a few drinks, lots of laughing. At one point, the bar announces there's going to be an open mic comedy night in 30 minutes. And one of my friends turns to me and says, "You should totally do it. You're the funniest person here. Now I need you to understand something. Being the funny one in your friend group is not the same thing as being funny. On stage in front of 40 tipsy strangers who have expectations and no emotional attachment to you, but I'd had 2.5 margaritas and recently watched a TikTok that said you should lean into fear. So I wrote my name on the list like I was about to change the world. The host calls me up, I grab the mic, and immediately I forget everything. The little jokes I'd written on a napkin? Gone. My name. Questionable. So I start rambling. I tell a story about how I once ate an entire rotisserie chicken in a parked car while crying to a Coldplay song. Normally a crowd pleaser in a sad, relatable way, but tonight, cricket's absolute silence. A woman in the front row, just took a slow sip of her drink and blinked at me like she was watching a TED Talk from someone having a stroke. So I panicked laugh. You know that weird wheeze laugh you do when your brain shuts down and your soul tries to escape through your mouth? Yeah, that one. Then I try to pivot. I'd say, okay, that one's a little dark. Let's lighten it up. Anybody here ever tried adult ballet classes? No one answers. So I tell them about the time I went to one and pulled a hamstring trying to impress someone who turned out to be married. Still nothing, the guy coughed. At this point, I'm spiraling. My face is hot, my hands are sweating, and I say the worst thing you can possibly say as a flailing comic. Okay, tough crowd. Which, if you don't know, is the official death rattle of a dying set. I wrapped it up with a week, well, this has been something, and scurried off stage like I was escaping a hostage situation. My friends, they tried to be supportive in the car ride home, but their smiles were full of secondhand shame. One of them actually patted me on the shoulder and said, "At least you tried something new." Which is what you say after a child draws you a picture of a cat that looks like a burnt pancake. I did learn something, though. Stand-up is hard, and not everything that's funny at brunch survives under stage lights. Also, drunk confidence is a liar. It's an entertaining liar, but still a liar. Would I ever do it again? Not a chance. But at least now I have a solid, this is the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to me. Story for icebreakers. Okay. I know that was a ride. But let's land this plane with a story that's equal parts confusing, humiliating, and somehow still kind of sweet. Because for our final tale, we're going back to one of the most dangerous fun things of all. Joining a friend's improv group. Spoiler alert, it involved me, a fake horse, and the phrase emotional spaghetti. Okay, so this one starts with me doing that thing against supporting a friend. Just trying to be a good, kind, say-us-to-life kind of person. My friend Jason had been in this small improv troupe for a couple years. You know, the type everyone wears Converse and has very big feelings about the word yes, and they performed every Thursday night in the back of a bookstore that smelled like coffee, mothballs, and unrealized potential. One week, Jason calls me and says, "Hey, we're down a member. You're funny." Now, I've seen improv. I've even laughed at it. But participating in it, it's like watching synchronized swimming and assuming you can just jump in and start twirling. But Jason's desperate, and I'm flattered. Once again, I say yes. Fast forward to Thursday night, I walk into the performance space, if you can call a room with 4 folding chairs and a tilted floor a space, and the rest of the troupe is already warming up. Not mentally, physically, like stretching, shaking out their limbs, and chanting zip zap zap in a circle like they're summoning a comedy demon. I introduce myself. They immediately nickname me Fresh Vibes. I don't know what that means, but I accept it. We run through a few practice games. We do this thing where they act like a blender, and I swear to. I was told, be the banana, feel the banana. I was in over my head and somehow also under someone's armpit in a human pyramid. Then comes the show. It's a full house, about 12 people. 2 of them are Jason's parents. One is asleep, another is knitting. The lights dim, and our fearless leader, woman named Fern, jumps out and yells, "Give us a location!" Someone yells, "Barn!" She shouts, "We're in a barn!" And boom, we're off. I'm just trying to follow the madness. A guy starts pretending to milk an invisible cow. Another starts yelling about a haunted tractor. And then, in a moment I'll never forget, Fern turns to me and says, "You're the horse. Do your monologue." Excuse me? Apparently, this is a thing they do, give emotional animal monologues in the middle of a scene. I freeze. Everyone's looking at me, so I crouch, nay, awkwardly, and then just go for it. I say, "I never asked to pull this plow. I wanted to paint, but the world said no. So I run. I run not for freedom, but for meaning." Silence. Then Jason claps once, very slowly. Fern starts crying. The audience is completely confused. Someone drops a knitting needle. The show ends shortly after. Everyone hugs and says things like "so raw," and "you felt the oats," which I think is a compliment. On the walk home, Jason says, "You were amazing. You should join permanently." I politely decline. And the next morning I woke up to a Facebook invite. Fresh Vibes. Debut of the Emotional Horse Trilogy. Part 2 next Thursday. I ghosted the group. This day I still get tagged in posts that say things like, "Remember when the horse felt things?" I do. Oh, I do. And that's it for today's collection of fun things I'll never, ever do again. From haunted houses and comedy fails to emotional barnyard breakdowns, I think we've learned an important lesson today. Just because something sounds fun doesn't mean it is. If you made it to the end, thank you for riding this chaos with me. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's the fun thing you tried that went so wrong you still wince thinking about it? Oh, and don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and click the bell so you never miss another wild story. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, if someone says it'll be fun, I promise. Run.